Sometimes, the world breaks you quietly, not with shouts or warnings, but with a single phone call, a single moment, a single loss that rearranges everything you once believed was solid. That's how Alyssa Collins' life changed. Softly, suddenly, and forever. She didn't wake up planning to become the woman who walked across America. She didn't imagine herself crossing states on foot, sleeping under open skies, or standing barefoot in the desert talking to ghosts. She was just a woman trying to find air inside a life that no longer felt livable. In the 6 months after losing her husband, the world became a blur. She moved through her days the way people move through fog, slow, unsure, reaching for things that no longer existed. Her mornings were empty. Her nights were heavy. She slept without resting and woke without purpose. Sometimes she found herself sitting in the living room staring at the wall for hours, unaware of how much time had passed. Sometimes she forgot if she had eaten. Sometimes she found her husband's jacket in the closet and collapsed on the floor holding it, breathing in a scent she feared she would forget. Her mother would call her every night, trying to keep her tethered to life. She would say, "Baby, you're hurting, but you're still here. And as long as you're here, there is something left to save." Alyssa didn't always believe her, but she listened. And then, when her mother passed unexpectedly 6 months later, it felt like the universe had taken the last person who understood her heart. People say loss brings you closer to others, but sometimes loss isolates you. It turns you into an island that others can't reach. Alyssa became that island. The night after her mother's funeral, she found herself unable to breathe inside her own home. Everything around her held memories, photographs, mugs, blankets, echoes of laughter. She stepped outside barefoot just to feel something real. The cold pavement, the wet grass, the wind on her face. She walked without thinking, past dim streetlights, past sleeping houses, past the edge of her neighborhood, past the point where exhaustion should have stopped her. She didn't stop until the sky turned pale with morning. Something inside her understood that walking, just moving forward, was the only thing keeping her from breaking into pieces. So she walked again the next day, and the next, and eventually, walking became the only thing she could rely on. A rhythm, a heartbeat outside her chest. One morning, after weeks of wandering, she opened a map of the United States. The lines, the rivers, the highways, they looked like veins, like a circulatory system of a country she barely knew. She traced the route with her finger from one coast to the other and whispered to herself, "What if this is how I survive?" And with nothing left to lose, she packed a small bag, slipped Daniel's photo into the side pocket, locked her door, and walked away from the life she once lived. The early days were painful. Her feet blistered. Her back ached. She questioned herself with every mile. At night, she slept in fields, under trees, outside small churches, or near the edges of gas stations where the pavement hummed with passing cars. But every morning she woke up and walked anyway. Something inside her insisted she keep moving, even when her body resisted. One afternoon, outside a small town in Missouri, an elderly man approached her with a thermos. He wore a faded baseball cap and a gentle smile. "You look like you need something warm," he said. She accepted the soup with gratitude she couldn't put into words. He didn't ask questions. He didn't pry. He simply sat beside her on the curb and gave her company without expectation. When she left, he pressed a folded note into her hand. It read, "The road is long, but so is your strength." A teenage boy on a bicycle rode beside her for 2 miles just to keep her company. A waitress slipped an extra sandwich into her bag. A tired mother offered her a place to shower. A homeless veteran shared his only granola bar with her. These small acts became her proof of good list, something she wrote down each night before sleeping. A quiet promise to herself that the world still held kindness, even in the corners she had never dared to look. One night, outside a barn in heavy rain, Alyssa came close to quitting. She sat on the muddy ground, shaking with exhaustion, rain mixing with tears she couldn't hold back. "I can't do this," she whispered to the dark. "I'm not strong enough." The storm rumbled above her like the sky was answering. And just then, the barn door creaked open. A farmer stepped out holding a lantern and a thermos. He didn't ask her story. He didn't need to. He placed the warm drink in her hands and said gently, "Even storms pass, sweetheart. Come inside." That night he gave her dry clothes and a warm blanket. In the morning, he handed her a pair of thick socks and tightened the straps of her backpack. "The world hasn't taken everything from you," he said. "Remember that." The more she walked, the more memories surfaced. Not the heavy ones, but the gentle ones she had forgotten. She remembered the way Daniel used to leave notes on the fridge, the way her mother used to hum softly while cooking, the way sunlight fell through the kitchen window on Sunday mornings. Instead of breaking her, these memories began stitching her back into herself. As she walked through endless plains, she remembered the last vacation she and Daniel took, driving through Colorado, stopping at small diners, laughing at roadside signs. She remembered the way he squeezed her hand when they crossed state lines, like they were sharing a secret adventure only they could understand. One night, camped under a sky overflowing with stars, she imagined him lying next to her, pointing upward and naming constellations the way he used to. The memory hit her so hard she curled into herself, holding her chest as if her heart had shattered again. But when she finally looked up at the stars, she whispered, "I'm still walking, love. I'm still trying. I hope that counts for something." By the time she reached Oklahoma, she had met dozens of strangers, each leaving a small mark on her journey. A retired teacher named Marlene walked with her for half a day, talking about her late husband and how grief shaped her. "Healing doesn't have a finish line," Marlene said. "It's something we learn how to carry." Those words became a mantra Alyssa repeated on the hardest days. In Texas, a group of bikers pulled over beside her. They looked intimidating with their leather jackets and roaring engines, but when they heard her story, one of them wiped his eyes and said, "You're walking for all of us who couldn't keep going." They offered her food, a sleeping bag, and a safe spot to rest. In New Mexico, she spent a night with a Navajo family who told her stories about the land, about spirits that walk with travelers, guiding them through their grief. The grandmother placed a stone in Alyssa's hand and whispered, "This is for protection. But remember, the road protects those who walk with an open heart." As the miles continued, Alyssa noticed changes within herself. Her stride became steadier, her breathing softer. She stopped flinching at memories. She stopped fearing silence. She learned to sit with her thoughts without drowning in them. She became stronger, physically and emotionally. Her legs carried her up mountains. Her shoulders carried the weight of her bag. And her heart carried everything she thought she couldn't survive. The hardest moment of her entire journey came in Arizona. She stood alone in a vast desert, the wind pulling at her clothes. The sky was enormous, so wide it felt like she could fall into it. She looked around and realized there was no one for miles, nowhere to hide from her thoughts, nowhere to run. So she sat on a rock and finally let herself face the truth she had avoided since the day Daniel died. She wasn't walking away from grief. She was walking toward acceptance. That night, she spoke to him as if he were sitting beside her. She told him she was sorry for surviving. She told him she didn't know who she was without him. She told him she wanted to live again but didn't know how. And when the sobs finally slowed, she whispered, "I think I'm ready to forgive myself, if that's okay with you." The wind blew softly across her face, warm and gentle, like a hand brushing away her tears. 11 months after she began, she reached the California coast. She walked onto the sand with trembling legs, feeling the ocean breeze wrap around her like a long-awaited embrace. She stepped into the water, closed her eyes, and let the waves wash over her feet. For the first time in nearly 2 years, she felt alive. She wasn't healed. Healing isn't a destination. It's a journey, one she would continue for the rest of her life. But she was no longer drowning. She was floating. She didn't return to her old home. She didn't want to live in a place filled with ghosts. Instead, she stayed by the ocean. She volunteered at a community center, helping people who thought their lives were over. She listened to their stories, held their hands through their pain, and told them gently, "You're allowed to restart. You're allowed to keep walking." People often asked why she walked across an entire country. She never gave a long explanation. She only smiled softly and said, "Because the world broke me, but the road put me back together." And in her heart, she carried one truth. Every step she took had led her back to herself.